It was Thanksgiving Day, and most people in the little town were busy getting ready for their family dinners. The air smelled of pumpkin pie and roasted turkey, and the streets were quieter than usual because many had traveled to be with their loved ones. At a small auto repair shop on the edge of town, a man was wiping his hands on a rag. He was a mechanic, a man who had spent years fixing cars, trucks, and anything with an engine that wouldn't run. Today, he was ready to close early and join his own family for the big meal. The mechanic had worked hard all week, and Thanksgiving was one of the few days he got to relax and enjoy the company of his wife and children. He had already told his boss he would be leaving soon. His plan was simple: finish up the last few jobs, lock the shop, and head home. But just as he was about to shut the door, his phone rang. The screen showed an unknown number. He wasn't expecting calls today, so he hesitated before answering. "Hello?" he said, his voice tired but polite. On the other end was a woman's voice, shaky and a little worried. "Hi, sir. I'm sorry to bother you on Thanksgiving, but my car broke down and I'm stuck on the highway. I have my 2 children with me and it's cold. I don't know what to do." The mechanic felt a knot in his stomach. He could hear the fear in her voice. Being stranded on the side of the road was scary, especially with kids and in the cold. He glanced at the clock. It was already late afternoon, and the sky was starting to turn orange with the setting sun. He thought of his family waiting for him, the warm house, the food, the laughter he was about to join. But then he thought of the woman and her children, alone and vulnerable. Without hesitation, he said, "Where exactly are you?" She gave him a rough idea of the location, a spot a few miles down the highway near a small gas station. It wasn't far, but the road was quiet and the weather was turning colder by the minute. "I'll be there soon," he promised. He hung up, grabbed his coat and a toolbox, and jumped into his truck. As he drove, he thought about how important it was to help others, especially on a day like today. The highway was mostly empty. The mechanic's truck moved steadily along the road, headlights cutting through the early dusk. He passed families rushing home, the smell of Thanksgiving meals drifting through open windows. He felt a small pang of hunger but pushed it aside. When he reached the gas station, he saw the woman and her 2 children standing near a small old car. The mother looked tired and worried. The children clung to her sides, one holding a small stuffed animal, the other rubbing his arms to keep warm. "Are you all right?" the mechanic asked as he stepped out of his truck. The woman nodded but didn't say much. Her eyes were watery, and she seemed relieved to see someone willing to help. The mechanic knelt beside the car and took a quick look under the hood. Right away he spotted the problem. The battery was dead and one of the tires was flat. It was a tough situation, but not impossible to fix. He turned to the family. "I'll get this fixed for you, but it might take some time. Are you okay waiting here with me?" The woman nodded again, grateful for his kindness. He went back to his truck and grabbed blankets. He wrapped them around the children and even gave the mother one. The warmth helped a little, but the cold was still biting through the night air. While he worked, the mother talked quietly. She explained that they were on their way to visit relatives for Thanksgiving. Everything had been planned for weeks. The food, the gifts, the smiles. But this breakdown had thrown everything off. "I just want my kids to have a happy holiday," she said softly. Glancing at her children, the mechanic listened carefully, feeling a deep respect for this mother trying her best despite the difficult situation. He said, "We'll get you back on the road soon. Don't worry." As he tightened the last bolts and replaced the battery, he glanced at the kids playing quietly with their blankets. They were tired but curious, and the mechanic smiled at their bravery. Once the car was ready, he helped change the tire. It wasn't easy in the fading light, but with patience and care, the job got done. Before they left, the mechanic made sure the car was running smoothly. He gave the woman his phone number, telling her to call if they had any more trouble. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. "You've saved our Thanksgiving." The mechanic shrugged and smiled, just doing what anyone would do. As the family drove away, the mechanic stood by the roadside for a moment. The quiet night surrounded him, and he thought about his own family waiting for him. He realized that sometimes helping others meant giving up your own plans. But those small sacrifices were what made life meaningful. He climbed back into his truck, the warmth of his coat wrapping around him. The sky was now dark, stars twinkling above. He started the engine and headed home. ready to share the true spirit of Thanksgiving, kindness, generosity, and care for others. Would you like me to continue with part 2 next? It was getting colder as the mechanic knelt down beside the family's car. The sun was dipping low, casting long shadows on the empty highway. The smell of autumn leaves mixed with the faint scent of exhaust from passing cars. The family huddled close together trying to stay warm, their breath forming tiny clouds in the chilly air. The mechanic could see the worry in their eyes, especially the mother's who kept checking on her 2 children. They looked tired and hungry, but most of all scared. Without wasting a moment, he opened the car's hood and took a quick look. He wasn't surprised to find the battery dead. It was an old car, and after years of wear and tear, problems like this were bound to happen. What caught his attention more was the damaged alternator, a part that kept the battery charged while the car was running. That was a bigger issue, but he was confident he could fix it, if only they had the right parts. He turned to the family and gave them a warm smile, trying to ease their nerves. "Don't worry," he said gently. "I'll do my best to get you back on the road before long." The mother nodded, her relief visible, but the children still clung to her side. The younger one, no more than 5 or 6, shyly peeked from behind her leg, wide-eyed and clutching a small stuffed toy. The older child sat quietly on the ground, their legs crossed and arms wrapped around their knees. Neither spoke much, but the mechanic could feel their fear. He pulled out his toolbox from the back of his truck and began working. As he did, he talked softly to the family, hoping to distract them from their worry. He asked about their journey, where they were headed, and how long they had been on the road. The father answered, explaining they were traveling to see relatives for Thanksgiving. A holiday full of hope and family warmth. But this year it was almost slipping away from them. The mechanic nodded understandingly. He knew what it meant to have plans disrupted, especially on holidays. His own family was waiting for him, but this moment, helping these strangers felt just as important. He offered the children some water and snacks he always kept in his truck for emergencies. Their faces lit up, and for a brief moment the fear seemed to melt away. While working on the car, he realized how much this family had been through. The mother spoke quietly about recent hard times. A lost job, a car that kept breaking down, bills piling up. It was clear they had been struggling to hold everything together, and this breakdown on the highway was just another challenge added to their list. But despite their struggles, there was a quiet strength in them. They didn't complain or blame anyone. Instead, they showed gratitude for the mechanic's help, thanking him over and over. The father even offered to pay him, but the mechanic refused, saying this was what he did, helping people when they needed it most, no matter the day or time. As he tightened the last bolts and checked the engine, the mechanic could see the relief wash over the family. The car's engine sputtered to life and the headlights cut through the growing darkness. The children cheered softly, their smiles genuine and bright. The mother's eyes glistened with tears of gratitude, and the father shook the mechanic's hand firmly. Before they left, the mechanic gave them a few safety tips and told them to drive carefully. He handed over a small card with his number and said, "If you ever need help, just call. And happy Thanksgiving." The family waved as they pulled away slowly, their car now running smoothly. The mechanic stood on the roadside watching them disappear into the distance, feeling a warm glow inside. This small act of kindness had meant the world to them, and in return, they had reminded him of the true meaning of the holiday, helping others without expecting anything back. As he packed up his tools and headed back to his truck, the cold air felt less harsh. The highway was quieter now, but the night held a new kind of warmth. The warmth of connection, of shared humanity, and of hope rekindled in a simple, unexpected moment. The garage was quiet except for the soft clinking of tools and the hum of a small heater struggling against the cold November night. Outside, the wind blew hard, rattling the windows. Inside, the family sat on a dusty bench wrapped in worn coats, while the mechanic worked steadily on their car. The father, a man with tired eyes and a worn face, spoke softly to his family. He didn't say much, but every now and then a name would slip out, a name that caught the mechanic's attention. It started small. The man mentioned an old friend's name, someone the mechanic had known many years ago, long before he opened this small repair shop. The name hung in the air like a forgotten melody, tugging at the mechanic's memory. He paused for a moment, wrench in hand, and glanced up at the family. Did you say Henderson? He asked carefully. The father nodded slowly, his eyes meeting the mechanic's. Yes, my brother. The mechanic's heart skipped. The Henderson family had been a big part of his life once. They had been neighbors, friends. But years ago, everything changed. The Hendersons had moved away suddenly, and no one really knew why. Rumors floated, but the truth was always out of reach. What happened to them? The mechanic asked, leaning against the workbench, wiping grease from his hands. The father sighed deeply. It's a long story. After some hard times, they left town. We lost contact. The mechanic felt a strange mix of sadness and hope. Could this family be connected to the Hendersons he once knew? He looked closely at the mother and the children, faces unfamiliar, but with something recognizable in their eyes. As he worked on the car, the family shared pieces of their story. Stories about hardship, moving from place to place and trying to hold their family together. The father talked about his brother, the struggles that had pushed him away, and how he'd always hoped for a chance to reconnect. The mechanic listened intently. He remembered his own struggles, the tough days when he wondered if things would ever get better. And he realized that this family wasn't so different from anyone else trying to survive and find hope. Hours passed. The car slowly came back to life under the mechanic's careful hands. But the real repair was happening between them, a mending of lost connections and broken hearts. At one point, the mechanic shared a memory of the Henderson family. A summer afternoon when they all gathered at the old park, children running and laughing. The air filled with the smell of barbecue and fresh grass. The father smiled, eyes shining with tears. I wish I could have been there. The mechanic nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. Maybe it's not too late. As the night grew deeper, the mechanic felt something shift inside him. This was more than just a car repair. It was a moment of reunion, a chance to rewrite a story that had been left unfinished for too long. He looked at the family again, tired but hopeful, broken but strong. And he knew he wanted to help them more than just fix their car. He wanted to help them find their way back. Finally, with a satisfying click, the car's engine roared to life. Relief flooded the room. The mother hugged the mechanic tightly. Thank you, she whispered. You don't know what this means to us. The mechanic smiled, his heart full. Just glad I could help. As the family gathered their things, preparing to leave, the mechanic offered to drive them partway, making sure they were safe on the road. In the car, they talked more, about forgiveness, second chances, and the hope that sometimes, even when life seems impossible, kindness can light the way. The mechanic thought about his own family waiting for him at home, the dinner he had skipped, and how this unexpected night had changed him forever. When they finally parted ways, the mechanic watched the family's taillights disappear down the road. He felt a quiet joy, knowing he had helped more than just a broken car. He had helped heal a little piece of a broken life. That Thanksgiving night, the mechanic understood something deep. Sometimes, the most important moments come not from the plans we make, but from the surprises life gives us when we choose to care. After the family's car was fixed, the air was filled with relief. The cold had started to bite deeper and the sky was darkening, but the family was ready to get back on the road. The father stepped forward, pulling out his wallet. With a warm smile, he handed Mr. Davis a small card. Here, he said. If you ever need anything, just call. Mr. Davis took the card and looked down at it. At first, it seemed like any other business card. But then something about the name caught his eye. His hands trembled just a little as he read it again, slower this time. The family wasn't just any family. They were people he had heard of before, people known in the community not for their flashy cars or big houses, but for their quiet, steady acts of kindness and generosity. He looked back at the father's face, and suddenly the pieces started falling into place. The man standing in front of him wasn't just someone who happened to be passing through town. He was a local philanthropist, someone who had worked behind the scenes for years to help small businesses and families in need. This was the same man who had helped fund a community project that Mr. Davis had applied to months ago, but never had the courage to mention. For a moment, Mr. Davis was stunned. Here he was, on a cold highway, fixing this family's car without asking for anything in return, and now he realized he had unknowingly helped someone who had already helped him. It was like life had come full circle in the most unexpected way. The father noticed the surprise on Mr. Davis's face and chuckled softly. "You look like you know me," he said kindly. "I'm not here for any fancy recognition. I just want to help people like you, hard-working folks who keep our town going." Mr. Davis shook his head, still smiling. "I had no idea. I'm grateful you told me. I never expected to meet you like this." The mother stepped forward and added, "We've heard wonderful things about your shop. It's people like you who keep communities strong. We wanted to make sure you know we appreciate that." The children, still holding their parents' hands tightly, looked up at Mr. Davis shyly, but he gave them a big grin and a thumbs up. "You're going to make it to your dinner tonight, and that's what matters." There was a pause as everyone stood in the cold, the car's engine humming steadily now. Then the father said something that stayed with Mr. Davis long after they drove away. "You never know how far a small act of kindness can reach. Tonight you helped more than just a car. You helped a family keep a tradition alive, and that means the world." Mr. Davis watched their taillights disappear into the night, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the heater in his own car. It was the warmth of connection, of knowing that sometimes the smallest things we do can change lives in ways we never imagine. That night, Mr. Davis sat down at his own Thanksgiving table, a little late and a little tired, but his heart was full. The card from the family sat next to his plate, a reminder that kindness is a two-way street, and that sometimes the people we help are the very ones who lift us up when we least expect it. The cold night had settled in, but inside the small house where the family had invited the mechanic, warmth filled every corner. After the long day and the stressful moments on the roadside, this quiet space was a refuge. The smell of roasted turkey, fresh bread, and sweet pumpkin pie drifted gently from the kitchen. The house buzzed softly with the gentle hum of conversation and laughter, a sharp contrast to the cold wind blowing outside. The mechanic had not expected this invitation. After spending hours helping fix a broken car on a chilly Thanksgiving evening, sacrificing his own plans to be with his family, he thought he would quietly leave once the car was running again. But the family insisted, their voices warm with gratitude and something more, like they wanted to share something important. He had hesitated at first. After all, he had his own family waiting at home, a table set with care and tradition. But looking into the eyes of the mother who had been so worried just hours before, and the children who now smiled freely, he felt a pull he couldn't explain. Accepting their invitation felt like the right thing to do. Maybe it was the way kindness circles back to you when you least expect it, or maybe it was simply the feeling of being welcome. As he stepped inside, the sound of a fire crackling in the fireplace greeted him. The living room was modest but full of little touches that spoke of love and care. A handmade quilt draped over the sofa, framed photos on the wall showing happy moments, and the faint smell of cinnamon and cloves from a candle burning nearby. The table was already set, the centerpiece a small arrangement of autumn leaves and candles. He sat down hesitantly, still feeling a bit out of place but welcomed with smiles and gentle words. The family's young daughter, shy at first, soon warmed up, sitting next to him and sharing stories about school and her favorite cartoons. The father poured warm apple cider into his cup and offered a quiet toast, to kindness, to strangers who become friends, and to unexpected moments that change lives. As the meal began, conversation flowed easily. The mechanic learned more about the family's journey, their long trip to be together for Thanksgiving, the challenges they had faced in the past year, and their hopes for the future. They spoke about small joys, the beauty in simple moments, and the strength found in sticking together during hard times. At one point, the mechanic found himself opening up too. He shared a little about his own family traditions, the way his mother would prepare a special recipe that only came out once a year, the stories his grandfather told by the fire, and the sacrifices he had made to support his loved ones. The room grew softer as everyone realized that despite their different lives and paths, they shared the same dreams: love, safety, and the hope of better days. The night grew deeper, but no one seemed ready to leave the warmth behind. Laughter came easily now, and the tension of the earlier roadside crisis seemed far away. The children played quietly in a corner. The adults exchanged stories from their past, and the mechanic felt a deep sense of connection, a reminder that sometimes strangers become family, even if only for a moment. Before the evening ended, The father pulled the mechanic aside and spoke quietly. "You know," he said, "we wanted to thank you again for what you did back there. You saved more than just our car. You saved our holiday, and maybe more." The mechanic looked at him, feeling a mix of humility and surprise. "I didn't do much," he said softly. "Just helped where I could." "No," the father insisted. "You reminded us what it means to care, to stop and help even when it's not easy. That's a gift," the mechanic smiled, realizing how true those words were. It wasn't just about fixing a car. It was about showing up, being present, offering help when someone needs it most. When it was finally time to leave, the family walked him to the door. The children hugged him tightly, promising to remember his kindness. The mother gave him a small wrapped gift, something homemade, and whispered a quiet thank you. The father shook his hand firmly, their eyes meeting with a shared understanding. As he stepped out into the cool night air, the stars twinkled overhead. The mechanic took a deep breath, feeling the chill but also a warmth inside that no cold could touch. He thought about the night's unexpected turn, the people he had met, and the way a simple act of kindness had grown into something much bigger. Driving home, the roads felt different, less lonely, more hopeful. He knew that the meal waiting at his own house would be special, but tonight's dinner had been more than food and tradition. It had been about connection, about showing up for others, and about the surprising ways life brings people together. Sometimes, he realized, the best moments don't come from the plans you make, but from the moments you decide to be there for someone else. That Thanksgiving, the mechanic didn't just fix a car. He helped mend a family's hope. And in doing so, he found something precious for himself. A reminder that kindness, no matter how small, can create a ripple that lasts far beyond one night.